Mics are on.
10-4.
It's transmitting data, but it's going to a custom. I don't know what that means. Mics are on. 10-4.
Okay, we're on.
It's transmitting data. Okay, here we go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Robert Saenz, and this is the Texas Examiner. And if you've been following us at the Texas Examiner, you'll know that we've had a few shows that have been very interesting. We've had shows on mental health, we've had shows on public safety, and we've even had political opponents from 2 different parties or 3 different parties on the show. Tonight, though, we have a special guest. We are honored to have County Commissioner from Kendall County Precinct 1, Christina Bergmann. Welcome, Christina.
Good evening. Thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity that you're giving me this evening.
Well, thank you for being with us after hours.
Yes.
Here in the studios. So we're here at the Kellum Family Medicine Studios, and we're glad to have you all on the show. This forum is meant to provide our Kendall County residents an opportunity to get to know our officials, specifically our County Commissioner tonight, Ms. Christina Bergmann. And we're pleased that we are offering this live stream today or tonight and giving everyone an opportunity to send in their questions via chat. This is our first live stream, so please bear with us if we experience any technical difficulties. However, the show will be recorded and you can share this or view it at a later time if you missed any of the questions. We have a series of questions tonight that we're going to ask the Commissioner. But before we start, we ask that if you submit something online, 1 is that you do it respectfully. 2 is that your question be relevant to Kendall County and preferably to Precinct 1 in Kendall County. And 3, that you identify yourself. Some of you may have an online chat name, so we'd like you to identify yourself so that the Commissioner can better address your question. So let's get started. Commissioner Bergmann.
Yes,
Christina Bergmann, tell us about Christina Bergmann. Tell us where you were raised, where you went to school, and how you got here to this position of County Commissioner.
So I was born and raised here in Bernie, lived here all my life. 1993 graduate of Bernie High School, go Greyhounds. So I left briefly and lived in San Marcos and went to Southwest Texas and obtained my business degree there, and then came straight back home and worked in the family business. My family had a Bergmann Lumber Company, which was a long-time standing 6-year business on downtown Main Street. So after graduating college, I came back and I managed my family business until we closed in 2017. And at that time, I became County Commissioner.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us. Commissioner, let's talk about some of your key accomplishments that you feel you've accomplished in this latest term.
Okay, so a couple of the things most recently is County Commissioner's Court has approved moving the acreage average for developments from 6 to 10 acres, and that was done to try and help the water quality of Kendall County. So the minimum for a well is going to be 10 acres now. Now, people are like, I only have 6 acres, but that's fine because you're vested. And so if you prior had less than 10 acres, you do a well, so don't worry about
like
that.
Grandfather clause.
You're grandfathered in, you're vested in on those acreage, but anything moving forward, it's going to be a 10 acres. So I know water is a very hot topic in our community. There's only so many straws you can put down in there before things start going dry, which we've realized in the last couple of years that that's happening quicker than we thought it would. So that's one of the things. A couple of the things that I've personally been involved in is the County Wildfire Protection Plan. And Christy Wiley and I worked on that along with others. Former Chief Bernie Fire Department, Doug McCall, was instrumental in that as well. And we worked with our local fire departments to put together this County Wildfire Protection Plan. And this court adopted it, the judge signed it, and it's there. And I'm hoping now that we have that plan in place that we can actually start implementing some of those things to protect our citizens from any type of wildfire in our area. That goes back to the weather and water availability.
Sure, of course.
For fighting those fires. Sure. So also been part of implementing a public defender's office, which helps with our jail population and gets people through those. Pretrial service also was that. One of the things that I did shortly after getting in office, I would go sit in the district courtroom and just see how district court worked. And I realized that we had a problem with audio and visual in there, and I was a little embarrassed by that. So I got with the district court, Judge Cahoon, and visited with her on that. And we did multiple upgrades, audio and visual, to the district courtroom. And it's very difficult courtrooms because she's constantly having trials or juries or something in that courtroom. So we were on a time crunch. And so we were implementing those on a time crunch, and I actually got in there and helped paint the district courtroom to meet that time crunch.
Okay.
Paintbrush in hand.
Actually getting out there.
I was actually painting on ladder, painting the ceiling, polishing the benches and stuff like that. So I'm proud of being able to make those upgrades for our constituents when they come in and see our courtroom as well and use our district court. So those are just a couple of them that I'm really proud of to be part of.
And what are some projects that you're planning to focus, assuming you get reelected, to focus on in this next term?
Okay. So I mentioned the CWPP. I'm hoping that we can move forward and implement some of the things that have come out of that plan. Another one is our law library is a space on our second floor of the courthouse, and lots of books.
Mm-hmm.
Very few people use books these days. Majority of the individuals do electronic.
Yes.
So again, working with the district court and trying to see about moving that to digital and do just little pods of computers for people that need it. But also that helps us utilize more space in the courtroom because we're growing and we only have so much space to grow in the courthouse. So working with the district court again to try and get the law library over to digital. And then most recently, Justice of the Peace Rita Presser in Precinct 4 and I are working to explore the idea of bringing a multi-county medical examiner here. Because right now, if a JP goes and pronounces a death and needs transport or an autopsy, it goes to Austin. And we pay the cost for the funeral home to transport back and forth, as well as the cost for the autopsy there. So we're starting to kick off and explore the possibility of doing a joint task force kind of with medical examiner to use and share the cost with adjoining counties. So kicking that off and hopefully starting some meetings up very soon on that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Now, Commissioner, I'm going to start asking you some questions that I have here that we've acquired from some of your constituents, some people on social media in anticipation for this forum. And so let me ask you this. According to the Census Bureau estimates, Kendall County, Texas grew from 33,410 residents in 2010 and to almost 49,000 in 2022. Bernie being the largest city, of course, doubled in size as well. With all this growth, Commissioner, how do you address some of your critics that say, whether this is fair or not, that during your tenure, you have been very pro-growth, a commissioner is very pro-growth, and very favorable to some of these developers. How do you address that? What's your response to that?
So what I will say is, yes, we are booming and everyone's coming here. And the issue is that everyone has property rights, including developers. Individuals have property rights, and developers that own property have property rights as well. So we've got to find that line to say, okay, yes, you're here. The other issue is that Austin has kind of held our hands on what we can and cannot regulate for developers. So a lot of times there's a checklist, and if a developer comes in and says, okay, I want to do this, and they've met all the requirements that we can legally require them to, we have no legal basis to tell them no. So at that point, and there's been times that I've said this, is, look, I don't like your development. I don't want your development here, but basis. And why would I, as a commissioner, vote no against something that I know we couldn't win in court? So now we would waste our taxpayers' monies fighting something in court that we really knew in the beginning that we couldn't do. So on the aspect of pro-growth is there's a fine line between pro-growth and following the law. The other thing is that if we don't grow, we regress. And so we've got to find that happy balance between growing and keeping our community what it is, that small town feel, that charm that everyone moved here for. But if we're not growing and bringing in new things, we're not getting a new tax base, people aren't coming here, and then people start leaving, businesses start closing. So finding that fine line between growth and progress is something that I do. And one of the things that I do in most all of my votes is I call it the ripple effect. My vote today, what is that going to do for the future? And how is that going to ripple affect the future on what I do today, growth-wise or transportation-wise or anything, is looking to see what is the long-term goal of our county. I mean, I've lived here, I've grown up here, I've seen the changes. I used to ride my bike on Main Street after business hours while my parents were working at the store, and there's no traffic, right? Nowadays, don't even try and cross the street without using a crosswalk. So it's coming. People are coming. They found us. It's not going to slow down. So let's find that happy balance to make it still a charming place to live.
Well, thank you. What are outside, you mentioned water, you mentioned, of course, we talked about the growth. What other challenges do you think you'll be facing in this new term, assuming you're reelected?
So infrastructure is one of them. A lot of times we get these big developments. We've got a lot of people moving in, and what they don't realize, some people don't realize is, okay, well, we need to keep our service up to level at the courthouse. You also have law enforcement. So we have to provide more law enforcement to protect the area and the citizens. EMS is county only, but we service the city of Bernie. And so we've also had to increase our EMS presence, which we're building and expanding out to Bergheim, building a new EMS station.
In fact, just down the street from this studio here.
Yes, sir, just down the street. So that's another added expense that the county has. And so the infrastructure and trying to keep things and keep our constituents and our residents safe, we have to up those things. The flip side of that is we've got to pay for it some way.
Right.
So nobody wants their taxes raised.
Right.
And we've done well. I say we've lowered taxes the last two tax budgets, which is good. But somehow we've got to find funds for those. So that's kind of where the growth comes back in, is sales tax and property tax helps offset that a little bit too. So the infrastructure and the level of service that people expect from the county is one of the top things that I think we're going to have to focus a little bit more on to have that level of service. Okay.
Let's talk about fiscal responsibility. You know, what is your approach towards fiscal responsibility? I know this is a very conservative county, and that's a big deal, you know, being fiscally conservative as an elected official. Tell us a little bit about how that works. You're one of 5 members in the court, and when you have to work on the annual budget, I'm assuming you're not always very popular with even your own department heads. So how do you approach the budget and telling these department heads, no? And in your experience, which are the top 2 or 3 departments that I guess account for most of our dollars?
So most of our dollars actually go to our employees. It is employees. That's one of our biggest budget items is personnel. And then it goes over to, I would say that the next one would be our law enforcement and our road and bridge crews and things like that. So budget is difficult because everyone comes in with their wish list, and not everyone can get everything on their wish list. And it's very difficult, as you said, to tell one department head, I'm sorry, you're not going to get this year because we don't have the funds for it. And it's also finding out what are the wants and the needs, because even myself, there's a lot of things I would like to have, but I don't need to have them. So it's having to go through that budget and the list from the department heads and say, okay, do you really need this? Or can we put this on your 2 to 3 year plan? Or what can we push off? Right. I mean, it's difficult to have to tell people, look, I can't fund it this year, but put it in next year's budget and let's see what we can do there. And then what's helpful with that is then you kind of know next year that these things are coming and we can kind of weigh it out. But I work very closely with majority of the department heads. I'm in my office pretty much every day, Monday through Friday, but I walk around the courthouse. I check with department heads. I see if I can help them with anything, offer my assistance and stuff. So I see the day-to-day workings within the courthouse walls and kind of know too what we really need. As I mentioned earlier, the district courtroom, I realize this isn't a want, this is a need for our citizens and for our district court to be able to handle court properly.
Yeah, and before we started our show, you and I were talking, and you mentioned something I think is important for our viewers to understand, is that, and I didn't understand this till recently, I go to some of the commissioner meetings and I see the 4 or 5 of you there, and I used to think it was theatrics that you all were debating or arguing with each other, and I thought to myself, don't they know this coming in that we're going to talk about? And so explain to us how that works. I mean, do the 4 commissioners and the county judge get together before the meeting and talk about how they're going to vote, or
No.
tell us a little bit about why
So
not?
there's a thing called a walking quorum, and we have 5 individuals, so 3 is a quorum.
Mhm.
And what happens is, for transparency purposes, I can't go and pull 2 other commissioners court members out and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or what do you think? And we get all of our ideas and we know we're on the same page. Then we go to commissioners court and it looks like, oh, well, wait a minute, y'all already knew everything behind the doors. So there is a rule that only 2 commissioners can speak on a topic with each other. So for example, if I've got something that I want to talk to another commissioner's court member on, I can go talk to that individual, but I can't go talk to a 3rd person on court because that triggers the walking quorum. So it does make it difficult, because there's times when there's something so simple that we want to discuss, but I've got to tell somebody, look, I already talked to another commissioner court member about this, so we cannot discuss this. So yes, it does appear sometimes when we sit down for commissioner's court, you're going, why did they not know this?
Right.
Well, because we can't discuss it with more than one other commissioner. So, or the judge. So if we speak to the judge, that counts as well. So it holds us accountable to be transparent for in the public, so we don't do those behind the doors types of deals where we all kind of know everyone's opinion before we ever get up there.
That's good. It's good to know. And, for tonight's forum, our intent was to have you and your challenger, Miss Jennifer McCall, who we hope that will view this podcast and perhaps in the future agree to attend. We reached out to her multiple times. Even this morning, I was reaching out to her campaign treasurer to no avail, unfortunately. We were hoping that we could have both of you together so we could talk, but hopefully in the future we'll have Ms. McCall on the show and she can tell us a little bit more about why she wants to run. Tell us why we should reelect you. I mean, haven't you already finished everything you needed to do?
No, as I told you earlier, I've got a couple of things I want to do. So at the age of 16, I started serving our community. I joined the Bernie Volunteer Fire Department, which I don't do suppression anymore, but I still am a member of that department. And that has started my service. And I have continued to serve this community since my age of 16. I've been very engaged in things within our community. I'm on the Civil Preserve Board to help try and protect a unique area within our county and keep it natural. I previously served 2 terms on city council. So I have the municipality background as well. And I was also on the Bernie Historical Commission. That's kind of where I got my start back then. I'm very active with the Bernie Rotary Group. I was the president of my homeowners association. I'm on the board for the chamber. I'm very active with the chamber.
Are you ever home?
I am home.
Okay.
I do try and spend as much time home, but I also, it's my community and I give back where I can.
Sure.
And so I've seen the changes. I'm involved. I'm out there. I kind of know what's going on. I try to give back to my community. I went and, helped preserve Wren Cemetery at the stock show. I was out there, not only purchasing items and supporting those kids, but I was serving drinks and assisting with the crews out there and stuff like that. So I try to give back to my community. I'm very involved. I'm out there. I try to be involved and know what's going on in the community as well. Right now, I'm currently the judge pro tem as well. So I have that. And then there's a group called Texas Associations of Counties, and that's kind of our education group. And they hold conferences, and we go to our conferences. That's where we get our CE hours, because we are required to get CE hours every year. And so we go to conferences to get the CE hours. And I have completed what is called the Commissioner's Court Advanced Curriculum. And so what that is you can go and get your normal hours, but they also have special sessions that you can go to at these, where some people will take the afternoon off, some will continue to sit in classes. I've chose to sit in those classes. Not only did I complete the curriculum for the advanced, but I am almost done with I think I only have like 4 other classes to do the entire curriculum and complete that. So I've tried to educate myself as much as I can so I can bring that back to the community and help better our community.
Thank you for that. You and Ms. McCall are both Republicans running under the Republican platform. for the primary. But you're both female, obviously. What sets you apart, though, from Miss McCall? And how would you tell our viewers, what sets you apart outside of all the qualifications you've discussed, of course, but going forward, why should we elect you over Miss McCall?
Well, I believe that I have the education and the background, and there is something to be said of being involved in your community and out and about. A lot of times there's people that run for office, and all of a sudden they're running, and all of a sudden they start showing up to some things, and they get engaged. But that's something I've never stopped doing. It's not just that I'm running. It's not just that I want a position. It's that I enjoy my job, and I'm out there, and I'm engaged, and I participate in things in the community, and I'm open. I'm an open door. If there's an issue, I've asked people, come talk to me. If I'm in my office and no one's in my office, my door's open. Stop by, visit with me, talk to me. I'm easy to get a hold of. My information is out there in the world. My cell phone, my county phone, everything. So I'm approachable, and I'm willing to listen. And not every time is everyone going to get what they ask for, but I'm going to do my best to help them within the law and try and make people feel comfortable too to be able to come and visit with me.
Well, you're obviously busy. That's obvious. And again, as I mentioned, we reached out to you, anticipating you may say no as the incumbent to come on our podcast. We reached out to Ms. McCall. We understand she's busy as well, campaigning, but we reached out to her multiple times and through multiple efforts. Not really sure if she chose not to come or if she's busy. She didn't feel maybe this was a good enough forum for her for whatever reason. Why did you choose to come on our podcast?
Because you gave me the opportunity.
Okay.
And it's one of those. It's a way for me to engage. It's a way for me to get myself and my thoughts and my history out to the public during this campaign. But it's also an opportunity for people to know their commissioner and what they do and how they do things and the practice of a commissioner as well. So I appreciated the call and the opportunity. And as you know, it didn't take me long to say, sure. Yeah. I mean, why not? Sure. It's a great way to get out there to our community.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Commissioner, if you could go back in time, don't we wish we all could? Not too far back, just back to this last term. What would you have voted differently on, or what would you have done differently?
Voted differently on, I can't think of anything specifically that I would have voted differently on. Some things that I would have changed was pushed a little bit more with legislation and try to get legislation, as I mentioned earlier, that we didn't have the tools in our toolbox to do those types of things, and try, which we did. Commissioner's Court has gone twice to legislation and asked for a little bit more control. There is a development. It's a WCID in my precinct that I will say, I can't say I wish I would have voted differently because I didn't have a legal basis to vote on it, but it is one of the bigger developments, and WCIDs can be a little tricky. And so
explain that, what a WCID is for our viewers.
Water Development Improvement District. And so they can bring in their own water and their sewer and they're kind of like their own little village.
A little domain, okay.
Their domain, they pay their own dues. They maintain everything within inside their meets and bounds and stuff.
They're still bound by the county's
rules. Yes, they are. Okay. But it's a little bit different because they're like their own little community that they can do stuff on. And so that there's also things called MUDs, utility districts and stuff. So those can be a little tricky in trying to work through and get things figured out. This particular one had a development agreement with the city of Barney.
Okay.
So I did work closely with the city of Barney and asked them, hey, in your agreement, can you try and put these things in there for us to help the county? Because they're going to impact the county. They're impacting our roadways, which was one of the big things. So they had to do a traffic impact analysis. And on that, it came back and said they need to spend this much money on roadways. And they were going to use some within their meets and bounds. And I said, no, we're going to use those on our county roads because you're the one that's going to mess up our roads. We need the improvements. Why should the county taxpayers have to pay for this when it's an issue that you're causing? And so there's 3 county roads that abut that specific subdivision that are getting improved now because of that.
Okay. One other question that one individual submitted to us was that, of course, there's always critics, right? That's part of being in this position. But one of the criticisms was that because you're involved in so many organizations in the community, it's a criticism and a question is, do you feel like there's a conflict of interest many times because you're involved in so many other organizations in the community as a county commissioner?
I don't think so, because majority of them, I'm an advocate for our county, and I'm in these on these boards and in with these organizations to have that connection and that collaboration. So there's a lot of collaboration that goes on. It's not just the county. We collaborate with the city on things. We collaborate with Hill Country Family Services on things, Konkrosky Center. So being involved and out there, again, to know what those needs are for our community, I'm in with these organizations and I hear those conversations. One of the most recent ones that I've been involved with is the Alamo Area Workforce. And I've been going to some group meetings with them to say, what can we do for our community? Well, now as being part of that discussion, I'm actually trying to set up a meeting with the judge to say, hey, look, what can we do to help them, to help our community? Because there is an issue. There still is a couple of issues out there. So time-wise, I believe I manage my time very well. I schedule things. I do my duties at the courthouse and my commissioner's job, but I'm still a commissioner when I go to all these board meetings as well and bring back whatever I can to make the county a better place, not only in the courthouse, but with the county and its individuals as well.
My co-host, Jon Tipton, who's actually here with us today, behind the scenes, running the monitors, had a list of questions that he presented to me. And it's kind of like that battery of questions, just say yes or no, for or against. So just briefly, are you for or against individual property rights?
I am for individual property rights.
Okay. Texas seceding, are you for or against that?
I'm undecided on that one.
Okay. Legalization of marijuana.
Undecided on that one, but kind of leaning more towards not legalizing it.
Okay. Tax abatements and concessions.
It depends on what the business is, what they're bringing to us, and that's a difficult just yes or no. Because
feel free to elaborate. Go ahead.
There's so much that goes into that. So it depends on the business. It depends on what they're asking, how long they're asking, and things like that. So
it's not a hard no.
That's not a hard no, hard yes. I've said no to some, and I've said yes to some. And I think it's, again, that ripple effect that I mentioned earlier is, by making that decision one way or the other, what can it benefit us, or what can it be a detriment to our community? So can't do it. Sorry, John, can't do a hard yes or no on that one.
He does that to me too. John just doesn't give me a lot of wiggle room, but I'm gonna go back to a couple of these and let you elaborate a little bit. But before that, impeachment of Ken Paxton, John?
That wasn't actually my question. That was posed to me to ask, and I said that I would. So I know it's a touchy subject inside the party. So I think there's some folks that are asking.
So our viewers don't need to come after Jon Tipton for that question. That was
they can. I wouldn't do this show if I didn't expect somebody to get mad and come after us.
Well said. So impeachment of Ken Paxton, that's a hot issue.
It is a hot issue, and actually I would rather not comment on that one.
Oh gosh, okay, fair enough. I'm not gonna hold your feet to the fire.
Okay.
Legalization of marijuana. Let's go back to that. You said you're kind of undecided about that. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a medical person. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I've had some people reach out to me, and I see a benefit in it, but I also see a detriment in it. So it's finding that fine line. Some of the research that I've done says once you do it, then it becomes even worse, and it's a problem. My concern is the youth and the accessibility to youth on that, and educating the youth, because their brain's still developing and they're not mature enough. And so then you do that. And it's just like anything else. It's out there.
Alcohol or
it's all out there, and they can have access to it. But I'm a little bit more worried about legalizing that and having it readily available to our community, Texas in general. Maybe I don't have a final yes or no.
And that's fine. That's an answer, and that's I respect that. That sometimes you don't have an answer to everything. I know this is a hot topic. John and I are inviting some guests in the future to be here, some that are pro-secession, Texas seceding, and some that are against it. We're going to have an interesting show on that. Same with legalization of marijuana. We got some that say it should be legal, some that say absolutely not. So those are shows that are coming up in the future, folks. On that note, I mean, secession. I mean, what's the pros and cons? Because there are pros and cons.
There are. And so, I mean, we can be our own, but one of the things that I've gone back to when people have asked is, if we succeed, then we have no military.
Okay.
We have our own government. So then we have to create all that. And we have to start from scratch.
Right.
And so by separating from that and losing our military services, that scares me.
And I'm a retired border patrol agent. That scares me of what's going to happen on the border.
Yeah.
You know, as it is, we're having a difficult time controlling it. So
That's my number one thing of why no.
Security
is security. And if something were needed, we have the Texas National Guard, but all military branches, those are government entities of the United States. If we pull out from that, then who's going to protect us when we need it?
Well, I'm sure there's viewers out there that probably have strong opinions on either side. We welcome that at the Texas Examiner. One of the things that we do here, commissioners, you've seen, is we try to invite guests that are on opposite sides of issues that can have respectful dialogue. You know, we've had the Republican Party chair, the Democrat Party chair. We've had a police chief and a defense attorney, a psychiatrist, and a patient who had different perspectives on mental health. And we pride ourselves in the Texas Examiner of doing that, of bringing people here with different perspectives so that we can discuss it respectfully and stimulate some dialogue. And not everything's black and white. Obviously, like the answers to our questions here, some you answered, some you weren't sure. So, Commissioner, I'd like to give you a chance to, as we wrap up, to tell the viewers, again, thank you for being here and taking advantage of this forum. Tell the viewers why, again, we should elect you once again as county commissioner and not your challenger.
So I feel that I've done a good job with our community and my working relationship with the community, as well as the collaborations that I've dealt with. My longstanding history of education and a background in business and helping the community, and my engagement, I think, is some of the most key things to say, okay, other than my opponent, what engagement, what things have been done. And so I think that's what makes me a little bit standing out in this race, is that I've been involved. I'm here, I'm active, I'm out there in the community, and I'm knowledgeable. I do have the history, and some people are like, well, you know, you're running again. Well, yeah, I still feel I have something to give. And I truly enjoy my job. I do. I wake up and I'm glad to be able to go do what I do. I love the people I work with. It's a great family, is what I call it, is our Kendall County family. And I'm there for them and they're there for me. And I still feel that I have stuff to give back to this community, and it's my hometown. And I believe I'm correct in saying I'm the only individual on Commissioner's Court that is a hometown Kendall County individual. So I think that says a lot too, because I've seen the changes. People move here for what it is, but then they want to change it too. And I want to keep it that small town feel and keep it my community and share that with the others coming in.
Well, thank you. And the last question I have for you is, you talked about you want to run again. Term limits. We had Commissioner Chapman here recently, and he said one more term and that's it. We got that recorded, Commissioner Chapman. So and when he runs again, I'm going to remind him of that. But do you believe in term limits at the county level?
So again, not a black and white question, but as I mentioned earlier, I think as long as someone is engaged and still able to give to the community and try and make it better and serve, then why not let them stay in there and do that, which is what I want. Now, when it gets done that I'm like, okay, I have nothing else to give, then I'll say, okay, I'm done. I'm going to let somebody else. But I've got my list of things that I want to continue working on, and I want to see forward to help our community.
Well, thank you so much, Commissioner Christina Bergmann, Precinct 1, Kendall County. Before we sign off, Jon Tipton, do you have any parting words of wisdom for our viewers at the Texas Examiner?
Believe it or not, I don't.
That is hard to believe.
but I actually am very grateful for your attendance and giving us the opportunity to share your story with our listeners and our viewers. Folks, if you haven't already, please subscribe, like, share, and comment on this forum, on this video, so that more folks can enjoy and gather the information that we provide. Other than that, Robert, I think we've done a fantastic job.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you, Commissioner Bergmann.
Thank you.
And thank you to the viewers of the Texas Examiner. Continue to follow us, continue to communicate with us on Facebook, other social media outlets like Rumble, X, YouTube, and let us know how you feel about our show, and also suggest other people that we should have on the show. We're going to continue to bring elected officials, incumbents, challengers, invite them to come in, because I believe in a small county like this, I think every forum, every opportunity for an elected official or a challenger to appear is important. And again, thank you for taking this opportunity, Commissioner. And again, farewell to all. Good night, and thank you for tuning in to the Texas Examiner. I'm Robert Saenz, and my co-host, Jon Tipton.
Good night, y'all.
Good night.